This podcast was produced using artificial intelligence and refined by human editors.
Konnichiwa, intrepid explorers, wanderlust dreamers, and armchair travelers. You've just tuned into another globe-trotting episode of Travel with Lara and Luca, where map lines blur, cultures tango, and adventure always has the right of way.
And what an electrifying waypoint we're chatting about today, Luca. We're virtually meandering through the neon-lit streets of a city that's as multifaceted as a well-cut diamond. Say it with us, folks. Tokyo.
Ah, Tokyo, where tradition brushes against the future with a whisper of cherry blossoms caught in between.
Beautifully put as always, Luca. And hey, before we dive headfirst into a sea of sushi, shrines, and salarymen, remember to hit that subscribe button. Share the journey because, as the saying goes, happiness is only real when shared.
Especially if it's shared with two chatty, slightly eccentric podcast hosts, right, Lara?
Oh, absolutely, Mr. Eccentric himself. Now, speaking of eccentric, I remember my first time in Tokyo. I was absolutely convinced that I'd easily navigate the Shinjuku station. To those who haven't had the, pleasure, that's the world's busiest train station. And trust me, busy is putting it modestly.
Oh, I remember you telling me about that. You called me. What was it? Disoriented, bewildered, lost puppy Lara?
Yes, that was an experience. I mean, there I was, surrounded by a sea of people all moving with such purpose, and I'm just spinning around looking for the right exit. But that's Tokyo for you. It can be overwhelming, awe-inspiring, and utterly exhilarating all at once.
True. And you know what? While we're confessing travel mishaps, let me throw in my hat. I went into what I thought was a quaint little ramen shop in Asakusa to escape the rain. It turned out to be an exclusive, reservation-only restaurant. The owner took one look at my drenched self and must have sensed my ramen desperation because he let me in. Best mistake ever.
There you go, folks. Serendipity, a traveler's best friend in Tokyo. But let's give our listeners a preview of what we're covering today. Luca, you want to do the honors?
With gusto, Lara. We'll start at Tokyo's iconic sites, where the past stands proud among the pinnacles of the present. Then, our taste buds lead the way as we delve into the city's mouth-watering cuisine, from street stalls to sushi that's as fresh as the morning tide.
And let's not forget the hidden gems. We love the main attractions, but Tokyo's got so many secret alleyways filled with stories waiting to be discovered, like a page-turning novel set under a paper lantern's glow.
A novel with an ever-evolving storyline, but we'll take you also through must-see places that you'd kick yourself for missing. Places that feel like they've been pulled straight from a cyberpunk graphic novel.
Then, we'll bet you didn't know certain weird facts about Tokyo. Like, did you know there's a vending machine that sells... Well, you'll just have to wait for that segment, won't you?
Ooh, the suspense. After stretching your curiosity, we'll travel back in time to uncover Tokyo's history, because who doesn't love a good origin story?
Right. And what would a tour with the encyclopedic Luca and the lyrical Lara be without expert travel tips that'll save your souls and souls as you pound the pavement of this giant metropolis?
Plus, we'll touch on side excursions for when you need to breathe that crisp country air. Ah, the floral whispers of the countryside. But we'll come back to the city to wrap everything up with final thoughts that, if we've done our job, will leave you pining for your own Tokyo tales.
So buckle up for a roller coaster of facts, fun, and heartfelt stories. Also a bit of poetry and a dash of impromptu film reviews, because why not mix it all in our travel cauldron?
Exactly. And since I mentioned film, let's kickstart the journey with a bit of trivia. Tokyo has one of the highest concentrations of movie theaters in the world. So if weather dams your travel plans, you know where to head for shelter.
And snacks. Japanese cinemas have some of the best popcorn flavors, a perfect pair with our first segment on Tokyo's iconic sites. But before we hop over there,
we ask you, dear listeners, to embark with us on this virtual voyage, to lean into the stereo sound of our voices and close your eyes. Unless you're driving, keep them open if you're driving, and visualize the bustling crosswalks, the whispering galleries, and the delectable dishes awaiting us.
And as we set off, remember that Tokyo and this podcast is best enjoyed like a fine Japanese whiskey, sipped, savored, and shared. Kanpai to that.
Kanpai, indeed. Stay tuned because coming up after the break, we're diving headfirst into the iconic sights of Tokyo. This is Travel with Lara and Luca, touching down in the city where dreams are as vivid as the lights in Akihabara, Tokyo. Welcome back, Globetrotters. You're tuned into Travel with Lara and Luca, soaring over the majestic landscape of travel insights, and we've just touched down in the magnificent metropolis of Tokyo. Let's start at the very heart of the city, the place that pulses with more foot traffic than any other, the incomparable Shibuya Crossing.
Ah, the Shibuya Crossing, or as I like to call it, the pedestrian ballet. Thousands of people all crossing at once from all directions, yet somehow it's a harmonious chaos that matches the beat of Tokyo's own heart. Luca, remember when you tried to take a time-lapse video there?
Oh, I do. I set up my camera, ready to capture the most epic urban choreography, and unbeknownst to me, I had been standing in a splash zone. A truck whizzed by through a puddle from a recent drizzle, and next thing I knew, my time-lapse featured an unexpected water feature. But hey, let's dry off and move from bustling modernity to esteemed tradition. Lara, why don't you lead us through the gardens and gates of the Imperial Palace?
The Imperial Palace. Nestled in the center of this electric city, it's like stepping through a portal into a quieter, more contemplative Tokyo. The palace, with its regal architecture and the East Gardens, just radiate a sense of peace. You can imagine the shoguns and emperors of yesteryear strolling the very same paths you're on.
Speaking of emperors, they've got this massive stone wall, right? I heard that some stones are so huge, they puzzled architects on how they were moved there. It's like Tokyo's Stonehenge mystery.
Certainly is a construction enigma. And let's not forget the highlight for those history buffs, the two bridges, Nijubashi, which means double bridge. They're perfect for those quintessential Tokyo postcard pictures. Though the palace proper is off limits for most of the year, you can still catch a glimpse of its understated grandeur, bridging history and modern life.
It truly is a blend of timelessness and urban energy, which makes for a perfect segue to the oldest temple in Tokyo, Senso-ji. My memory of it isn't just the towering gate and the incense that perfumes the air, but also the colorful array of shopping stalls lining Nakamisedori, leading up to the temple.
You're referring to the eponymous Kaminaramon, or Thunder Gate, with its iconic lantern that's as photogenic as it's redolent with history. And yes, Nakamisedori is a sensory overload in the best way possible. There you are, sandwiched between centuries-old history and the fragrance of local snacks wafting around.
That whole area is like a living, breathing marketplace haiku. I bought a paper fan that had a painting of dragons dancing over Mount Fuji. I didn't need it, but when you're there, among the crafts and the calls of the vendors, it's as if these little trinkets choose you, not the other way around.
That's the poetic embodiment of shopping if I've ever heard one. The temple itself, with its grand halls and pagoda, is a site of intense spirituality. I once lit an incense stick there and made a wish, somewhat skeptical. Then, bizarrely that evening, my long-lost wallet was returned to me by a stranger.
The Senso-ji miracle. And while we're talking about must-see wonders, let's not forget Tokyo Tower and Meiji Shrine. Quick fire round, Lara, give us the images.
Absolutely. Tokyo Tower, a crimson spire piercing the sky, its nighttime glow, a lighthouse for urban explorers. It's like Japan's response to the Eiffel Tower, but emboldened with unique Tokyo spirit. You ascend this tower and watch the city sprawl beneath you like a living circuit board.
And Meiji Shrine, a sweeping forest that swaddles a shrine to the deified spirits of Emperor Meiji and his consort. It's a place where you toss a coin, bow twice, clap twice, and bow once more. It's a meditative dance, a ritual, and it makes the visit feel like a personal conversation with the past.
Nicely detailed, Luca. Many people don't know that Meiji Shrine is located right next to the fashion-forward Harajuku district, which just further complexes that delightful contrast Tokyo so often presents us with.
Tokyo's contrasts. It's like a masterclass in city personality. All right, we've covered some of the big hitters, but let's not ignore the tower that looks like a futuristic spaceship. I'm talking about the Tokyo Skytree, one of the tallest structures in the world.
Oh, how can we overlook that? It looms over Tokyo like a sentinel from the future. There's this observation deck that makes you feel like you're floating over the city. Even better, it's a sundown spectacle. I remember watching the sun dip below the horizon, the city lights flickering to life. It was utterly mesmerizing.
It's like seeing the heartbeat of Tokyo switch from rhythm to bass as night falls. But we're just scratching the surface. The mysteries and marvels are endless here.
Endless indeed, and that's just a taste. We covered bustling crossings, royal residences, ancient temples, and towers that tickle the clouds. But don't pack up your headphones just yet. Coming up after the break, we'll satiate your hunger with Tokyo's dizzying array of delicious cuisine.
Sushi, ramen, and perhaps a sweet surprise will make your mouth water. You're listening to Travel with Lara and Luca, and we're feasting on Tokyo, one sight and soon one bite at a time.
Welcome back, dear listeners, to your audible passage through Tokyo with Travel with Lara and Luca. We've glimpsed the iconic sights, and now it's time for your taste buds to take a grand tour. Tokyo is not just a city, it's a flavor fest, a multi-course meal bound to satisfy any gourmand. Right, Luca?
Absolutely, Lara. When I think of Tokyo cuisine, I think of an Epicurean adventure where every street corner, every market stall has a new taste, a new experience. The first time I tried sushi at Tsukiji Market, it wasn't just food, it was an awakening.
An awakening? Do tell us this epiphanic encounter.
Well, there I was, fresh off the plane, sleep-deprived and utterly jet-lagged. I wandered into Tsukiji Market, and the first thing that hit me was the raw, oceanic scent of fresh seafood. I don't mean fresh like the supermarket label fresh, I mean still twitching just off the boat fresh.
A true ocean-to-plate experience.
Precisely. And there, beneath the fluorescent glare of a market stall, I found sushi nirvana. It wasn't like any sushi I'd had before. This was an edible haiku, a precise, beautiful, ephemeral bite of tuna that melted on my tongue, leaving just a whisper of the sea and a hint of wasabi fire.
Oh, I can almost taste it now. And let's not relegate our culinary ramble to just sushi. There's also the bowl of solace, the dish of the soul, ramen. Wasn't it in a little rickety ramen shop in Ikebukuro where you found an unexpected connection to film noir, Luca?
Indeed, it was the stuff that could inspire a cinema classic. Picture this, a narrow alley, steam billowing from a nondescript shop steeped in shadow, just a lantern swaying gently with the name of the shop written in weathered kanji. Inside, the counter is like a stage, and behind it, the master, the chef, orchestrating a broth symphony.
Such imagery. It sounds less like a meal and more like stepping into a black and white film scene with a private investigator sitting at the end of the counter, nursing a dark past along with his dark miso ramen.
Exactly. But rather than a detective, I was sitting next to a salaryman slurping his ramen with gusto, which, by the way, is a sign of enjoying your food in Japan. Not rude at all.
Right, and the ramen, silky noodles, that rich complex broth, tender slices of chashu pork, bamboo shoots, and maybe a seasoned egg. It's hearty, it's warming, it's a melody of savory notes. And for our listeners at home, picture this. Each region, heck, almost each chef has his own spin on ramen. It's as individualized as fingerprints.
A delightful impact on the culinary DNA of Tokyo. And Lara, I know you've got a sweet spot, not a weakness, mind you, for Tokyo's desserts. Do you want to tantalize our listeners with some sugary tidbits?
Do I ever? Calling all sweet tooths, this is for you. There's a mythical layer to Tokyo, a sweet stratum where traditional meets trendy. I'm talking about mochi, dango, dorayaki, sweet treats that are a nod to the past, each with its own texture and sweetness balance. But it's not all about tradition. Luca, remember that fluffy pancake place in Harajuku?
How could I forget? Those pancakes weren't just light and airy, they felt like biting into a cumulus cloud harvested at the peak of dessert perfection. I mean, they even jiggled enchantingly as they were served. It was basically a foodie ballet on a plate.
A foodie ballet, I love that. And to add to the dessert parade, let's not overlook the perfect parfaits, the elegant slices of rare cheesecake, and the whimsical animal-shaped donuts. Tokyo finds this sweet spot, pun intended, of playful and refined.
This is where we'd battle it out over which dessert reigns supreme. But it'd be a never-ending debate because Tokyo's sweets are an ever-evolving tapestry of taste.
They truly are. And for those finding their way through the cuisine of Tokyo, remember cafe culture is solid here too. Theme cafes abound. Cat cafes, owl cafes, even vampire cafes for those feeling a tad Transylvanian.
So Tokyo does delightful as well as it does delicious. And since not all of our listeners can jet off to Japan on a whim, Lara, how would you recreate a slice of Tokyo cuisine at home? What's your go-to recipe?
A touch of Tokyo at home for me would be mastering the art of tamagoyaki, the Japanese omelet. It's simple yet complex, rolled into layers and subtly sweet. It's like crafting an edible origami, each fold a delicate layer of egg.
Now that's a recipe to write home about. Hopefully, our listeners are adding these dishes to their culinary bucket lists because later in the show, we'll be dishing out some expert travel tips that'll have you navigating Tokyo like a local.
And up next, we're stepping off the main streets and sliding into the secretive side alleys to discover Tokyo's hidden gems. You won't want to miss the whispered legends and locales that we've unearthed.
So whether you're listening with a steaming bowl of ramen or a delicate makizushi roll, stay tuned to Travel with Lara and Luca. Your next serving of Tokyo tidbits is just around the corner. Konnichiwa once again, fellow adventurers. You're back on Travel with Lara and Luca, where we're weaving through Tokyo's vibrant tapestry, one hidden thread at a time. After indulging in the symphony of Tokyo's cuisine, we're taking you off the beaten path to uncover some lesser-known treasures. Are you ready, Lara?
Oh, I was born ready for this, Luca. Tokyo might be famous for its iconic landmarks, but it's the hidden gems that often leave the most lasting impressions. It's as if each nondescript doorway can lead you to a new world entirely.
And speaking of doorways, there's this small garden I stumbled upon last time I was there. Not many tourists know about it. A few blocks away from the noise, nestled between modern buildings, lies this serene pocket of nature. It's almost like discovering a secret level in a video game, complete with koi ponds, stone lanterns, and whispering bamboo.
That sounds idyllic. Did this magical place have a name?
Of course, it's called Kiyosumi Teien. Originally built by a wealthy businessman during the Meiji era, now it's an oasis in the concrete jungle where the locals go to digest a book, clear their minds, or just breathe. Once you're inside, the city's hum fades away, leaving you with the soundtrack of rustling leaves and wind chimes.
I'm big on wind chimes. They always sound like nature's own music. Meanwhile, I veered into a different kind of sanctuary, a retro record shop in Shinjuku. Tucked away in a back alley, it was like entering a musical time capsule. Rows upon rows of vinyl, some familiar, others utterly obscure, and the owner, a maestro of melodies, recommending tracks that felt like they were from long-lost recordings.
The anthropology of music, available for discovery in Tokyo. It just shows that the city's rhythm isn't only in its train tracks and crosswalks, it's also in these crevices of culture that beckon the truly curious.
And those crevices often appear where you least expect them. Take Nakamaguro, for instance. By day, it's a pleasant neighborhood with a lovely canal, but come cherry blossom season, it transforms. The canal blooms into a canopy of pink and white, each petal a poem to the transient beauty of nature. The lanterns add a golden hue, painting a picture you won't find in any guidebook.
That's true poetry in nature, Lara. Ah, and speaking of unique discoveries, I can't go without mentioning Tokyo's hidden coffee scene. In a little open-air outpost on the side of an unassuming building in Jimbocho, they served me a cup of coffee that was a revelation.
Coffee as a revelation, you say? It must have been quite the cup.
Oh, it was. The place, a tiny patch of peace called Coffee Mamea, is staffed by barristers who could be professors of coffee. They held a consultation with me, like a doctor diagnosing my caffeine needs.
A personalized caffeine prescription only in Tokyo.
Precisely. And the brew they crafted for me was less a beverage, more a warm, comforting embrace. But these coffee wizards are part of the appeal. Tokyo's coffee scene is vast and varied, giving any seasoned coffee aficionado a run for their money.
Indeed, it's rich, robust, with a dash of quirky, much like the city itself. Let's keep spinning this thread of hidden finds. There's an underrated art scene here. Those who think Tokyo's all flashing lights and futuristic facades would relish the intimate galleries dotting the city. One moment, you're amidst the urban rush. The next, you're contemplating contemporary art in a quiet enclave in Roppongi or wandering through a classical ukiyo exhibit
It's the paradox of Tokyo's art world, vibrantly modern, yet interlaced with the threads of tradition. They've embraced global trends while showcasing distinctively Japanese art forms. It invites a dialogue, wordless but profound, between the viewer and the work.
Insightful as ever, Luca. The city itself is akin to a living, breathing work of art. Now, we're about to guide our dear listeners back to the bright lights and the big sights of Tokyo. But before we do, let's not forget about one of the best ways to kickstart a Tokyo morning, after you've downed that divine cup of coffee, of course.
And that would be
the fish auction. It's not a secret per se, but the tuna auction at the Toyosu Market, the place that succeeded Tsukiji, has this frenetic energy. Being there, you witness a slice of Tokyo life where tradition meets the demands of a hungry metropolis.
That alone is worth the early wake-up call. Now, as we hop back onto our audio rickshaw, awaiting us just around the corner is another gem of Tokyo. It's filled with sights to spark wonder, places that make you rethink the word must-see, and facts that may sound stranger than fiction.
So stay with us as we venture into yet more must-see places, the quirks and eccentricities, and the history that shaped Tokyo into the thrilling enigma it is today.
Travel with Lara and Luca will be back faster than you can say sayonara, so don't go away. Pack your virtual suitcase, listeners, and get your imaginary passports ready. You're tuned back into Travel with Lara and Luca, your first-class ticket to must-see places in Tokyo that we've earmarked especially for you. Right, Lara?
Absolutely, Luca. Our listeners have been escorted through the hustle of Shibuya Crossing, the imperial elegance of the palace gardens, and the tantalizing sushi counters. But now, we're guiding them through a neon-lit pop culture paradise, Akihabara. Luca, you're buzzing just thinking about it, aren't you?
Buzzing like the district itself, Lara. Akihabara is like stepping into a pulsating world where anime comes to life. From maid cafes to multi-level electronic stores, it's a sensory feast for the eyes and ears. The air is electric with the signs buzzing, the arcade games echoing, and cosplay enthusiasts showcasing their vibrant get-ups.
Eclectic doesn't begin to describe it. You move from gazing at retro video games to navigating the latest VR experience, dodging robots and giant Pokemon plushies along the way. And then there's the manga. Row on row of colorful, intricate stories just waiting to transport you to boundless new worlds.
It's the embodiment of Tokyo's otaku culture. And let me set this scene. I once witnessed a live J-pop performance on a random street corner. The crowd was all glow sticks and enthusiasm, a spontaneous eruption of music and joy. Where else but Akihabara?
It's like you're living inside a kaleidoscope. And speaking of vibrant experiences, not far from Akihabara, there's Ueno. The Ueno Park is an amalgam of artistry and relaxation. It's home to the Tokyo National Museum, the National Museum of Nature and Science, and let's not forget the Ueno Zoo.
A treasure trove of culture indeed. That park is a universe unto itself. From cherry blossoms to pandas, from fine art to mummies, you'll find something there to pique curiosity in travelers of all ages and interests.
Let's wander now from Ueno to another must-see place that holds a special place in your heart, Luca, Yanaka.
Ah, Yanaka. When the buzz of the metropolis gets to be a bit much, Yanaka is the antidote. It's one of the few districts where you can catch a glimpse of what Tokyo felt like before all the steel and glass. It has survived earthquakes and wars, and walking its cemetery is a walk through history, past poets and politicians, artists and artisans who shaped the city.
There's tranquility in Yanaka that's harder to find in Tokyo's faster-paced districts. It's a solemn reminder of the city's depth, isn't it?
Yes, and everything there feels purposefully unhurried. You've got the artisans making pottery, the shops selling handcrafted indigo textiles, and tiny eateries where stories are exchanged as freely as recipes.
That's the fabric of Tokyo. Diverse, resilient, timeless. And while we're brushing against the fabric of time and space, we've got to talk about Asakusa. Beyond the historic Senso-ji temple, it's an area that throws you back to the Edo period while serving up views of the futuristic Skytree.
Asakusa is a time traveler's delight. It's got rickshaws coasting by, traditional Japanese sweets, and shopkeepers who have been perfecting their craft for generations. It's the care in those traditions that gives Tokyo its enduring character. a character that thrives even as the city races towards the future.
And these must-see places, Luca, they don't just reflect Tokyo's spirit. They're a testament to the city's ability to merge different eras, different narratives into a single, unified experience.
That's exactly it. You feel Tokyo's pulse not just in the flashier districts like Shibuya or Ginza, where luxury beckons from every shop window, but also in these pockets of the city that have held fast to their stories, their pace of life.
And talking about unique pulses, if we journey closer to nature at the edge of Tokyo, we reach Todoroki Valley. A verdant ravine where a stream snakes through the forest. It's only a short train ride from the action, but it might as well be miles away for the serene sense of detachment it offers.
It's a slice of wilderness amongst the urban sprawl, perfect for reflection, for a moment of breathing in the lush, unsullied air. And at the valley's heart, there's a charming tea house where you can sit, savor a matcha, and simply be.
Just be, indeed. Well, listeners, we've fluttered through the electronic glitz of Akihabara, meandered through the historical heart of Yanaka, and found solace in Todoroki Valley. There's a universe within Tokyo, and we've just scratched the surface.
And just think, something as understated as enjoying tea could be your defining Tokyo moment. Keep listening as Travel with Lara and Luca continues, and next, we'll indulge your curiosity with some truly weird and wonderful facts about Tokyo.
Curious wanderers and seekers of the strange, welcome back to Travel with Lara and Luca. Lucas, as we navigate the must-see places of Tokyo, I can't help but think of the oddball corners and the peculiar tales that add an extra dimension to this multifaceted city.
You're absolutely right, Lara. Tokyo is a treasure chest of oddities, each one more fascinating and, let's be honest, sometimes more head-scratching than the last. So let's peel back the curtain on some of Tokyo's weirdest facts. Where should we start on this journey into the wonderfully weird?
How about with the fact that Tokyo houses the world's busiest train station? Shinjuku Station feels like you're inside a real-life pinball machine. An estimated 3.64 million people pass through it every single day. It's organized chaos taken to an art form.
And here's a weird yet wonderful fact for you. Those tuning fork sounds you hear notifying you of train arrivals are actually melodies composed specifically to reduce commuter stress. Each jingle unique, each jingle a mini vacation for your neurons.
Musical therapy amid the rush, that's Tokyo for you. And from the sonic to the gastronomic, how about vending machines that serve up not just drinks and snacks, but complete meals? Pizza, burgers, and yes, even hot soup. Perfect for those on-the-go Tokyoites.
Vending machines are like Tokyo's silent butlers, aren't they? And speaking of which, let's spill the tea on an oddity that had me in stitches. How about those vending machines selling, well, let's call them personal companions? I'm talking about the infamous used schoolgirl uniform vending machines.
It's a fact that often makes travelers balk, but it goes to show that in Tokyo, the vending machine culture has a spectrum as wide and varied as a rainbow after monsoon season.
And from the quirky to the quaint, the world of Tokyo's side street bars, or yokocho. These narrow alleys house dozens of tiny bars, some fitting no more than 4 or 5 people at a time. It's intimacy defined, where space is precious and your bar neighbor becomes an instant comrade.
Tokyo does small scale as emphatically as it does grand scale. You know, Luca, another fact that amuses me every time is Tokyo's love for mascots. There's a mascot for nearly everything. The police, the fire department, even prisons have cute and cuddly avatars.
Yes, the charm offensive of mascots even extends to drain covers, adorably designed and a source of local pride. Who would have thought drainage could be so endearing?
Beauty in the utility, one of Tokyo's charming contradictions. But let's not forget capsule hotels. Born out of necessity for budget travelers and weary salarymen, these pods provide minimalist accommodations complete with TV, Wi-Fi, and communal baths.
Those hotels redefine the concept of personal space and inspire a sense of living in a sci-fi novel. Speaking of sci-fi, Tokyo's robot restaurant showcases a cybernetic cabaret that's a hallucinatory blend of neon and noise.
A cybernetic cabaret. Sounds like an album I'd listen to. These robotic experiences are juxtaposed with Tokyo's softer side. It's sentimental, reflected beautifully in the fact that you can find a cat cafe on almost every corner. perfect for a cozy respite from the city's incessant energy.
And energy isn't just in Tokyo's pace, it's in its creative fire. For instance, did you know Tokyo has more Michelin stars than any other city in the world? The pinnacle of culinary excellence and creativity right there.
Yes, and we can't gloss over Tokyo's sanctuaries of silence. The city has soundproof karaoke rooms where you can belt out power ballads without fear of judgment or disturbing the peace. A strange blend of the private and the performance.
Now let's mosey on over to an odd fact with a historical bite. A stone's throw away from Tokyo Tower lies Senso-ji Temple, where you'll find a line of statues dressed in red caps and bibs. They represent the unborn children of Japan. It's an oddly poignant sight amidst the urban rush.
It's touches like that, pockets of solemnity, that ground the city's frenetic life. All right, here's a brain tingler for our trivia lovers. Tokyo was once known as Edo. It transformed from a sleepy fishing village to a sprawling metropolis, a metamorphosis that mirrors a butterfly's but on an urban scale.
A fishing village that spawned a metropolitan butterfly. I like that. And it's difficult to remember sometimes, when caught in the whirlwind that is Tokyo, that it stands in a land prone to earthquakes. It's built resilience into the city's DNA. They even have an earthquake simulation center for both education and a touch of amusement park thrill.
Strange when you think about it, how entertainment and preparedness are intertwined. Now, before our listeners think they've fallen down a rabbit hole of Tokyo oddities, let's remind them that this city's unusual facts only add to its allure.
They certainly do, Lara. And coming up, we're dialing back the clock to discover the history behind Tokyo's present-day curiosities. So stay tuned as we peel back the layers of time on Travel with Lara and Luca.
Welcome back, history hunters and seekers of stories, to Travel with Lara and Luca. As we surf through the space-time continuum of Tokyo, we're about to embark on a historical journey through this ever-evolving city. Luca, why don't you kick us off with a trip back to the origins of Tokyo?
Gladly, Lara. Imagine, if you will, a small fishing village by the name of Edo. It's the early 17th century, and the shogun Tokugawa Ieyasu decides to establish his base there. Little did he know that his decision would transform this sleepy village into the political center of Japan, a place that would one day become the bustling metropolis we now know as Tokyo.
From a humble village to a powerhouse that dictated the rise and fall of Japanese politics, culture, and economy, the Edo period is really where Tokyo's story begins.
That's right. Edo, under the Tokugawa shogunate, was characterized by a rigid social order. Yet, it was also a time of artistic and cultural renaissance. The flowering of Bushido, the way of the warrior, kabuki theater, ukiyo-e art, it all happened right here.
It was a dichotomy of disciplined structure and blooming creativity. And then, with the Meiji Restoration in the late 19th century, Edo becomes Tokyo, symbolizing the eastern capital where the emperor restored his presence and power.
That transition sparked rapid modernization, with Tokyo embracing Western influence while striving to retain the essence of its Japanese identity. It rose from the ashes of the old shogunate and looked toward industrialization, towards the future.
But Luca, we can't talk about history without acknowledging the devastating 1923 Great Kanto earthquake which ravaged Tokyo, or the deep scars left by World War II. A city repeatedly brought to its knees by disaster, only to stand up taller each time.
It's a testament to Tokyo's resilience. Post-war reconstruction paved the way for Tokyo's economic miracle. The city became the beating heart of Japan's rise as a global economic superpower. It put itself on the map with the 1964 Summer Olympics, showcasing its recovery to the world.
And the city's growth can be seen as a parallel to the bubble economy of the 80s. Properties were valued at exorbitant prices, and Tokyo reached new heights of prosperity, culminating in a bursting bubble and an ensuing period of economic stagnation.
Yet, through it all, Tokyo's spirit never waned. This is a city defined by its undying spirit of reinvention and innovation. The development of districts like Roppongi Hills and Shiodome, where one can see Japan's ambition of the 21st century.
And of course, we can't overlook the influence of pop culture, manga, anime, fashion, and technology. It's as if history took a paintbrush dipped in neon and stroked it across the canvas of Tokyo's districts.
Oh, what a picture that paints. A vibrant and visceral reminder that history isn't just what's in textbooks, it's alive, pulsing through the temple drums, the Shinkansen tracks, and the electric hum of Akihabara's gadget shops.
It's also remembered in the calm of gardens where samurai once wandered, in the stoic walls of the imperial palace that endured the passage of time, and in the pop idols' billboards that preside over Shibuya like modern deities.
From past to present, Tokyo's history is not just a timeline, it's a multi-layered narrative, each era a different shade, blending into the vibrant masterpiece that the city is today.
And it's in places like the Edo Tokyo Museum, where visitors can walk through life-size recreations of Nihonbashi, the iconic bridge, or browse lovingly restored maps, artifacts, and dioramas that encapsulate Tokyo's awe-inspiring evolution.
For those who visit, it's like stepping into a living history book, where every page turn reveals another chapter of this city's incredible story, another piece of the puzzle that is Tokyo.
And speaking of stories, when you're in Tokyo, every interaction, every experience adds to that story. The city's history isn't confined to the past. It's being written every day by the people who live in, love, and visit Tokyo.
History is indeed a living entity here, Lara. Tokyo may be always looking forward, but it never forgets the steps it took to get here.
As we move forward in time and in our podcast, we'll transition from Tokyo's tapestry of history to offering you expert travel tips. Whether you're a first-time visitor or a returning fan of the city, we'll equip you with some savvy advice to navigate Tokyo like a pro.
So stick around as we continue our voyage through Tokyo with practical wisdom worthy of a shogun to keep your travels as smooth as sushi-grade tuna. You're locked into Travel with Lara and Luca, your audio compass pointing straight to the heart of Tokyo. We've time-traveled through history. Now let's bring you the lowdown on exploring this city like a seasoned local with our expert travel tips.
Getting around Tokyo might seem daunting, but with our insider info, you'll be zipping around the city easier than a sushi chef slices sashimi. Let's start with what perplexes many, a challenge I know all too well, the Tokyo subway system. Luca, share with our listeners your top hacks.
Indeed, Lara, the subway is a best friend disguised as a labyrinth. First tip, get yourself a prepaid Suica or Pasmo card. This tap-and-go card is your magic key to the city's trains and buses. No more fiddling with ticket machines or guessing fares.
Genius. Plus, those cards work in convenience stores for quick purchases, the essence of convenience. Now, tell me about your process because last I heard, you had the subway map memorized like the back of your hand.
Well, not quite, but almost. So here's another tip. Understand the color coding and numbering system of each line. It's designed intuitively. The Yamanote line, for example, is a loop line that connects most of Tokyo's major city centers. Think of it as your central artery from which you can branch out.
And branching out in Tokyo, you'll find Wi-Fi everywhere, but it's not always reliable. Luca, you've got advice on staying connected, right?
Oh, absolutely. While Tokyo offers free Wi-Fi hotspots for peace of mind and nonstop connectivity, rent a pocket Wi-Fi or get a local SIM card. There are kiosks at the airport where you can grab either. And trust me, Google Maps becomes an invaluable sidekick when navigating Tokyo.
Totally with you on the pocket Wi-Fi. It's been a lifesaver, especially when I've gotten overly ambitious trying to find hole-in-the-wall ramen spots. And since we're on the topic of deep dives into the city, let's not forget about the etiquette, which can sometimes trip up even the most traveled.
True, Lara. Simple things like knowing it's polite to queue up and wait your turn for trains and elevators go a long way. And when you're on escalators, remember, stand on the left, pass on the right. It's the unspoken rule of Tokyo's escalator ballet.
And another thing, noise. Tokyo's a city that speaks in whispers. It's considered good manners to keep your voice down, especially on public transportation. No one wants to hear about your last karaoke performance while commuting.
That's correct. And for those planning to browse Tokyo's shops or partake in its many services, a no-tipping culture prevails. In fact, tipping may be seen as rude, as excellent service is a standard expectation and not something you pay extra for.
Another tip, When visiting temples and shrines, there's a purification ritual involving water basins. It's a way to cleanse before you enter sacred spaces. You'll want to do as locals do. Rinse your hands, then your mouth, without letting the ladle touch your lips. It's all in the spirit of respect.
Respect, absolutely vital. Now let's circle back to dining. You find a sushi spot that's busy? Great, but remember, if the bar is full, they might not seat you, even if tables are open. Sushi chefs pride themselves on the bar experience they curate. You don't just eat, you witness artistry in motion.
Dining is an experience here, and speaking of which, let's address those traveling solo. Don't shy away from it. Solo dining is entirely normal, even encouraged. It's meditative, like enjoying a meal with the company of your thoughts.
Cultural immersion. And speaking of thoughts, Lara, any quick language tips for our travelers?
Yes, learn a few basic phrases like arigato gozaimasu, thank you, and sumimasen, excuse me. Politeness opens doors in Japan, and a little effort with the language demonstrates respect for their culture. You'd be amazed at the warm responses it evokes.
Those warm responses make navigating Tokyo not just easier, but richer. Remember, Tokyo might seem a digital fortress from afar, but up close, it's a tapestry woven with humanity, history, and hospitality.
Which is why we encourage our listeners to strike that perfect balance. Plan ahead, but leave room for the spontaneous. Who knows when you'll stumble upon a local festival or find yourself watching a sumo practice session.
Tokyo's unpredictability is part of the adventure. And with these tips, our listeners are now armed to take on Tokyo with the savvy of a samurai.
Armed and almost ready to round off this virtual tour as we anticipate our next segment. Luca and I will be guiding you through side excursions that beckon beyond Tokyo's city lights. So keep us tuned in for more of Travel with Lara and Luca, where we ensure even the most seasoned travel album has a blank page ready for new adventures. If you've ever dreamed of stepping beyond Tokyo's electrifying aura to explore hidden valleys shrouded in mist or temples that speak of ancient tales, then you're in luck. Welcome back to Travel with Lara and Luca, and it's time to venture out on enchanting side excursions.
Tokyo is enthralling, but Japan is vast, with every destination telling its own story. So let's whisk our listeners away to day trip destinations that are the perfect counterpoint to Tokyo's high-speed symphony. Where shall we stamp our travel passports first?
Let's traverse the cultural and spiritual landscape of Nikko. Just a couple of hours north of Tokyo, the shrines and temples of Nikko are set amid a landscape that is nothing short of mythical. Home to the mausoleum of Tokugawa Ieyasu, the founder of the last shogunate in Japan, it's a place where architecture blends artfully with nature.
Ah, Nikko, where the Shinkyo Bridge curves over the Daya River, resembling a gentle bow made of cypress and lacquer. And the ornate carvings of the Toshogu Shrine? They could keep an art historian busy for days.
Not to mention the tale of the three wise monkeys at Toshogu: see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. It's a global icon born right here in these sacred grounds. But beyond the temples, Luca, there's also Nikko's natural splendor, isn't there?
Absolutely. The Kigon Falls, with water hurtling down 97 meters, the serene Lake Chuzenji, the hiking trails of Senjogahara marshland. Nikko offers a melting pot of spiritual and scenic treasures. It's a refreshing pause from the pace of the city.
And speaking of nature, another escape is Hakone, known for its hot springs and the poetic views of Mount Fuji. It's a thermal wonderland where onsen baths are the perfect remedy for weary traveler souls.
Those baths are steeped in tradition, tattoos are often a no-go, and bathers must adhere to the onsen etiquette. But once you're soaking in those geothermally heated waters, with a vista of greenery and perhaps even the silhouette of Mount Fuji, it's transcendental.
Ah, to soak in history and hot water, bliss. And just a stone's throw from Hakone are the art museums, with their sculptures set against the backdrop of nature. Shifting the gaze from foliage to fine art can be more rejuvenating than you'd think.
Certainly art for the soul, Lara. For a more historical tilt, let's talk about Kamakura, once the de facto capital of Japan. It's a coastal town where the past gently whispers through the streets, where the Daibutsu, the great Buddha statue, invites moments of reflection in its bronze majesty.
Not only that, but the beaches, the bamboo groves of Hokokuji Temple, and the street food like purple sweet potato ice cream are all meaningful parts of the Kamakura experience.
I'm partial to the hiking trails myself. From the Daibutsu Trail to the Genjiyama Park, Kamakura's natural beauty enhances its historical vibe. It's like walking through a scroll painting from the Kamakura period.
Walking history lessons, how wondrous. And these side trips are a gentle reminder that just outside the rapid rhythm of Tokyo lies a world ripe for exploration, each with its unique storybook setting.
Indeed, Lara. And let's not forget to impart some practical advice. Bring comfortable shoes, layer your clothing, and always carry a small towel for onsen visits and the occasional unexpected rain.
Essential tips for sure. Readers of Basho's haikus can revel in his legacy in the quiet trails, while those more keen on immersive history can witness the shrines that echo with the footsteps of samurai.
Every excursion is a chapter added to your travel narrative, a narrative that we hope to enrich with each story and tip we share.
Stay with us, dear listeners, because when we return with Travel with Lara and Luca, we'll wrap up today's journey with a personal touch. Our conclusion and final thoughts on Tokyo and the many paths you can walk there, both paved and hidden.
It's been an epic saga of sightseeing, a culinary conquest, and the uncovering of Tokyo's many-layered soul. Now, as all tales must, we come to the closing chapter of today's Travel with Lara and Luca. Lara, how are you feeling after our Tokyo trek?
I feel like we've just lived through a novel's worth of experiences in one city, Luca. Tokyo is truly a protagonist with 1,000 faces, a city where every angle you view it from reflects a different aspect of its identity.
So true. We've traversed through Tokyo's crowded crossings, paused in the tranquil gardens of its temples, indulged our senses with the freshest of delicacies, chuckled at the odd but endearing quirks, and marched through the annals of its history.
And with each step, each subway stop, each savory bite, Tokyo has revealed itself not just as a destination, but as a feeling, a pulse, a rhythm that resonates within each of us long after we've left its embrace.
This city, with its seamless blend of the traditional and the futuristic, the serene and the stimulating, is like a jazz ensemble, every instrument playing its unique part, coming together in perfect syncopation to create a symphony that's complex, captivating, and oh so vibrant.
As our listeners have probably felt, Tokyo doesn't just sweep you along in its current. No, it invites you to dance in the whirlwind, to find your beat amidst the rush and rush amidst the stillness.
The dance is individual for everyone. Maybe it's the dizzy jubilation of Harajuku's fashion streets for some, the poignant silence of the Hiroshima Memorial for others, or the pure joy of stumbling upon a late-night izakaya with laughter spilling out onto the streets.
For me, Tokyo has always felt like a novel that never ends. Just when you think you've reached the final page, you find a hidden chapter waiting to be discovered with new characters, unexpected plots, and the promise of continued adventure.
And isn't that the beauty of travel? The open-endedness of it, the departure from the scripted life, an invitation for spontaneity to take the lead and guide you to the unwritten stories that await your footsteps.
Speaking of unwritten stories, Luca, what would be your last surprise music recommendation to go with our Tokyo narrative?
Something to encapsulate this journey. Let's spin Fantasy by Mariah Carey. It's upbeat, whimsical, with a touch of the transformative, the very essence of Tokyo. Plus, who doesn't love a good sing-along to wrap up an epic tale?
Perfect choice. And for my closing note, I'll share a quote from Haruki Murakami, who captures the enigma of Tokyo so well. Tokyo was a kind of flat, sand-colored city that spread out endlessly in all directions. There was something lonely, something desolate about it.
An apt description for a city that can often feel like a vast world in and of itself, a canvas waiting for each passerby to make a mark, paint a piece of their own story.
From the crowded streets to the quiet corners where solitary figures find solitude, Tokyo is a mosaic made of every soul that moves through it.
And so, dear travelers, it's time to conclude today's episode of Travel with Lara and Luca. Our journey through Tokyo is over for now, but the adventure is just beginning. Thank you for letting us be your guides through the intricate roads and stories of this phenomenal city.
Keep Tokyo on your horizon, and whether you walk beneath the cherry blossoms or gaze upon the city from atop a skyscraper, remember that every step is a new discovery. Every discovery, a tale to treasure.
As we say our final sayonara, we leave you with our lasting impression of Tokyo, a city of contrasting beauty, of hidden haunts, of unexpected delights, and of enduring spirit. A city where each visit is both an echo and an original melody.
Until next time, keep your hearts open to new experiences, your minds hungry for knowledge, and your suitcases packed for wherever the wind may take you. Farewell for now, from Travel with Lara and Luca.
Sayonara, friends. Till our next travel tale unfolds, keep exploring.